yeah, these functions I know I added since the last recording, and you can see how it's all a mess over here. So the mess kind of like indicates what areas need attention and which areas may have been most recently touched. It's kind of like, I guess maybe you could consider that methodology kind of hacky, but I think it works really nice. Where, like, it's like a construction area, right? The construction area is kind of messy, right? I mean, concrete dust everywhere, dirt everywhere, right? And so this is kind of, to me, it flags this as like an area under construction, and I know I have to, keep on working on it. Okay, let's go to the next breakpoint. Okay, so the initial, yeah, I think I already went over this, and I was confused at why there are breakpoints here on viewport 1, because they should be on viewport 2, because this is the new part right here, not this up here. And even these initializer values, these are new as well. I have no clue why I put breakpoints there. I don't, maybe they just accidentally got shuffled around. Okay, let's look at, okay, that can't be everything. Maybe I just wiped some breakpoints or something, because I know I have, okay, I'm going to look for, where are you? So much stuff. Add and sub, that's new. Okay, so here I have addition and subtraction functions for unsigned integers, and I'm just making it so that if I go out of bounds, like under bounds or over bounds, the value is going to wrap back around on the other side. So going forward too far was pretty easy, because I just could modulate with, a fully filled uint 32 and then just add 1. But going the other way, I don't know, it's a little bit more ugly. So you may have noticed I didn't say underflow, because I guess I was reading some stuff on Stack Overflow, and they're like, well, actually, underflow doesn't actually exist in C, because no matter which direction you go, it's actually an overflow. And I'm like, oh, all right then. So yeah, anyways, addition and subtraction commands to make the values wrap around in kind of a predictable way without like going negative, right? Because these are supposed to be unsigned. There's no such thing as unsigned type in JavaScript, so I'm just pretending that they're unsigned, because I have all these rectangle manipulation functions right here. So move left, move right, move up, move down, that's going to translate the rectangle. Zoom in, zoom out is going to like kind of like pinch pull all sides at once to zoom in and out of stuff. And then pull left, right, top, and bottom. Pulling is like as if you were inside of the rectangle and you were like pulling the walls inwards, So the rectangle will collapse in on itself if you invoke these pull functions from all sides. Push does the opposite, so it's like as if you were inside the rectangle and you were pushing on the sides. So this will expand. So if you want to get something, so you're zooming in on some shader code and there's something you want to like get in frame, you can just push out, one of the sides. Like if it's over to the right, you could just push out one of these sides of the camera, and so you can get exactly the composition you want without right? Obviously, you can just move the camera as well, but if you like already are like, I already like exactly what's on this edge, then you can manipulate the other edge individually, so that you can, I don't know, I think it'll be useful. Also, this is just going to be useful for helping me make sure I have good groundworks and understand how these viewports work before I do something more involved. Anyway, yeah, I am not good at this. Okay, so the commands, they're pretty straightforward. So for move left, you have the inclusive rectangle, and then you have a unsigned integer for how much you want to move it left. And I was pretty explicit about, how it works. Therefore, I explicitly put zeros in certain places. So, to move left, you got to just move the x values, right, simultaneously. And to move right, same thing, just in the other direction. And then up and down, same story, move all the values with each other, but on the y-axis instead of the x-axis. Okay, for zoom, you need to move all of the edges at the same time. And so instead of thinking of x0, x1 as a point, you can think of x0 as the left bound, x1 as the right bound, y0 as the top bound, and y1 as the bottom bound, which is really nice for thinking about this, because now we can think of zooming in and out as just expanding and contracting those edges of the box, which I think makes it a lot easier to comprehend. So yeah, we got zoom in and we have zoom out. So the logic here for zoom in and zoom out just alternates. So you see add, sub, and then on the bottom you see sub, add, add. Alright, so pull left. Same deal. I took a lot of time to check this logic to make sure I didn't have any typos, to make absolutely sure all of this is correct, and I am kind of sick of this. I'd like to explain it in detail about, but you know what? I've already checked it. If you're really curious, you can pause the screen. But I'm pretty sure it's going to work. And the other thing is I'm tired of looking at it, and all I want to do is run the code and see the results. And from the results, I'll know if I have made any bugs anywhere, because I'll actually test that out. What's more important to me, we got the push left functions. What's more important to me is just getting through all of this, because I just don't want to do this anymore. Okay, so you'll notice that this has the word rec bounds at the end of it. So this is all the exact same logic repeated over again, except it's been done in a way where if you tell the camera to go right, but it is bounded by this bounding rectangle, and it's like you have no more space to go right, it will not move the camera. So the camera controls with safeties on them, so the camera is constrained to certain areas, and even if you tell it to go there, it won't go there. So, for example, zooming out, the camera will only, using these type of functions that have the rec bounds at the end of them, the camera would only zoom out enough until it hit the bounds of the world or whatever bounds you have supplied here. So we have these, basically these are the safe, easy to use versions of the functions above that are which are much more straightforward. So I wrote the much more straightforward ones first, and in some of these straightforward ones I had air checking logic and stuff, and then I was like, maybe we should clean this up and have, an unsafe and safe version of these functions. And so I'm going to test out both of them to make sure both of them works. The expected behavior of, so let's say with your zooming in, as you zoom in and you pull in those sides of the rectangle, eventually you're going to make that rectangle, a single pixel big. And then if you keep on zooming, what's going to happen, because of the logic that I'm using, is the rectangle is going to invert on itself. And I don't know what that is going to do to the shader code, or what that's going to look like. I thought it might be interesting to just see what that looks like. And also, I was like, I could add the code to stop it from inverting on itself right here, but all of this is very straightforward and very clean and easy for me to understand. So I'm like, you know what? Okay, we'll just do the straightforward version of all these functions first, and then we'll add the versions that are more safe to use and do bounds checking and all that. We'll add those ones next, and then we can cross-reference them against each other if we want to see if we've made any errors. So I can test with both sets of functions, and hopefully they all work and there's no bugs and everything will be nice. So this is just to detect if the rectangle has a bad order, right? If like the x0 is greater than the x1, or the y0 bound is greater than the y1 bound, right? So the rectangle has bad ordering. So it's a validation function. And then this nin function, same thing. It means not inside the bounds, because we want to detect for that. The safe viewport manipulation functions expect that at the beginning of the function call, that your viewport rectangle is completely within the bounds of the bounding rectangle. Otherwise it will crash. I thought about it. I'm like, no, we're going to keep that kind of constraint. I would rather crash on a false positive than not crash on a undetected problem. And then, to avoid feature creep, because there's already a lot going on here, and I honestly have probably coded more than I should have. A good way to stop yourself from writing too much stuff when you shouldn't be is, I really should need a function called like this too. Let's code the logic for that. And be like, no, don't code the logic for it. Just make the function name and then just throw an error in there, right? And then if you end up deciding that you need to call it, well, you already have the stub there, and then you can fill it out. But but for the things that you're probably not going to need, that you're just tempted to write, just stop yourself from writing them, put in a little function stub, and then move on. And like 90% of the time, it's just going to stay as a throw statement because I'm never going to use it. Right? And that's how you deal with feature creep. You just put in stubs and say, not implemented yet. Like, seriously. There's something psychologically satisfying about just doing this little thing here rather than like going the whole way. And this isn't much of a time investment, and it also helps you kind of like think of the larger picture without having to like go down there, right? You're thinking about all those countries and places you might want to travel to, but you're not like actually going to them right there in the moment right now, right? So same thing. We're going to think about all those nice functions we want to travel to, but we're not going to do it. Okay. What else? So this is keyboard, editor shader code. Okay, we were already here. We're like looping around in circles. Oh, that's because of... So there was one more thing. It was the... Like if we look at the... well, let's just go... So if we look at editor 1, where are you, editor 1? I don't know why my syntax highlighting sometimes gets all bogus like that. Is this editor 1, or is this... No, this is editor 1 associated variables. Sub-editor, example... Okay, new editor 1. Okay, so this is our editor that we're working on that you've been seeing footage of. Okay, 13 minutes, okay. So the keyboard events, we have left, right, up, and down, reset. I didn't implement anything for reset yet. Reset is like I want to reset the zoom and position of whatever data we're looking over. And so yeah, just these are camera manipulation basically, right? So you take the rectangle VP1 and then you use this rectangle operation on it, right? And these are all those different rectangle functions, the unsafe ones that I went over. And then after I get this working, like after I've written the shader code to the point where it's going to use these values correctly for the viewport, then I will, use the keyboard to invoke all of the different rectangle manipulation commands and make sure that the results look correct. And if the results look correct, then we will just tack on. We could either tack on the other function calls, or we could just have a switch that calls one or the other, depending on what mode you're in. I don't know. That could get really lengthy, though. But, I want to stick with something as straightforward as possible, even if the code might end up kind of long. What else? Yeah, I think that's about it. So the basic idea is then reworking the shader and trying to get that viewport kind of logic working. And I've got it almost all figured out. But now I just need to, work on this diagram and then create some shortcuts and snippets for some of the math I come up with. And then once I have that and the shader's working, then I will maybe finally get to integrating the previous playlist into this code base. Hopefully, because I thought this was just going to be like a little step of, we're just going to add a little bit of OpenGL. Maybe it'll be a little hard, but we're just going to add a little OpenGL, and then we'll add that old code from that other code base. And then, I don't know how many videos later, and, 6,000 lines of code with some comments. Yeah. I swear it's not feature creep. I swear I'm going somewhere with this. Okay, later.